Good afternoon and welcome to our Rotary Club for our weekly celebration of service. I'm Ron Barnes and it's an honor to be your president and be here today. The quote of the day is kind of fitting for Rotary. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service of others. Mahatma Gandhi. Teresa is going to do our reflection today. Teresa, are you here? Oh, caught you with a plate full. I'll tell you what, why don't we do introduction of guests first and then we can have our reflection. So if Greer, you could come up and introduce our guests, I'd appreciate it. Coming right up.
Do my best. Good morning. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you. Our guests today, we have Deb Fish, guest of Aaron Davis.
Yes, please stand. Welcome. Steve Engel, guest of Steve Engel. Now, I'm not sure how that works. Welcome all the same. Steph Engel, I'm sorry. Welcome, Steph. We have Inger Nemchik, guest of Dave Meyer. Welcome. We have Victor Akumbi, guest of Dr. Smith Patrick. We also have Steve Versaw, guest of Sarah Laughlin. Welcome. We have Pam Lukin, I believe, and that's a guest of Judy. Hello. And finally, David Sabah. Welcome, also a guest of Judy. Welcome to you all.
Thank you, Greer. Are there any guests online, Joy?
Ron, no guests online, so just hi to the guests in the room and everybody else.
For our guests today, welcome. And if Rotary interests you and you want to be involved in this great service club, just talk to any of us and we'll be glad to talk to you about becoming a member. Now, Teresa.
So on June 24th, I had the pleasure of joining 9 or 10 other women at Charlotte Zitlow's living room for a living room conversation on the topic of women leadership and power. So when I think of that topic, I don't quite think of polite women sitting around refusing wine because it's 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, but instead just this feeling of what could this potential that could come out of this room. And so I want to share something that happened as subsequent to that event. So on July 8th, I went up to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and stayed at Indiana Tech with 120 cadets in the Civil Air Patrol. So if those of you who don't know about this, actually, just who knows about the Civil Air Patrol? So maybe about half, slightly under half of the room. So I'll just share quickly that the mission is volunteers serving America's communities, saving lives and shaping futures. So there's 3 programs: cadet programs, which I was involved in on this previous week, emergency services, which I'm also involved in, and then aerospace education. So the values of the Civil Air Patrol are integrity, volunteerism, excellence, and respect, which tie nicely to Rotary. So in case you're looking for an activity to do on a Thursday evening, we meet at the Monroe County Airport. Anyway, so I spent a week in Fort Wayne, and I basically followed the cadets around. So it was the cadets leading other student cadets. And so I was there to make sure that they didn't get in trouble and stayed safe in their activities. And and to encourage and calm fears, we had a few teary-eyed in the first couple of days as they were getting adjusted to the new routine and being away from families. And so that was mainly my role there in support. But on the second to last day, I had a unique experience that I wasn't quite sure what to do at the beginning. And so in the morning, it's Friday morning, so we're getting ready to leave on Saturday. So Friday morning, a girl reported that she had been sexually harassed. And so I talked to her. I said, well, tell me about it. And there was some verbal remarks that were made to her. And I said, well, what do you think should happen as a result of that? And she said, well, it would be, I don't really want to, make this public. I just would like to, if we can just make an announcement to the group as a whole, and so that he wasn't singled out and she wasn't singled out. So there's a chain of command in the Civil Air Patrol similar to the military. So while I was running it up my chain of command, as I had agreed with her that this would probably be an appropriate next step. And there was a second report, same boy. And so my supervisor decided to act immediately. And she took the boy aside and she kind of gave him some stern redirection. And I was witness to this, and he said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she basically said, we know that you did it. So, you're lying, basically. And witnessing this, I felt uncomfortable because we want to believe the girl, right? But he's denying. So what do we do? So that afternoon, I really wrestled with this, and I got to talking to several other boys that were, or I should say young men. One of them was an Indiana University student, I will add. And two of the young men, late teens, early 20s, had been, I would say, won't say also, but had been wrongfully accused of sexual misconduct with serious repercussions. 5 o'clock that night, the girl recounted her story, and she said, she retracted her statement. She said it wasn't him. So that evening, I sat down. I had the girls every night. I had quiet time with the girls on the girls' floor. And I sat down and I said, girls, I need to talk to you about something serious. So I channeled Charlotte Zitlow and had my own little living room conversation. And I told them what happened. And I said, we have fought for decades, if not centuries, for women to be able to speak out. And we need to be believed. And we need to have that ability. We need to protect that ability. But, making sure that if there is something that you're questioning, before accusing somebody that it could be wrongfully accusing them, to making sure that you have your facts so that we don't get boys in trouble. I have 3 sons, and I would hate for them to go through what some of these young men have gone through as a result of being wrongfully accused, having their scholarships removed, having suspended from activities. So it's happening on this campus, and it's happening in this community where women are now using this as a power because they don't like a boy. And this is what so after I shared, I opened it up to the girls and I said, well, what do you think? And it was wonderful to hear the girls supporting and encouraging each other. It was very similar to what we were sharing in Charlotte's living room. And they were supporting each other with their own ideas. So don't be alone with a boy that is making you feel uncomfortable. Tell them no if they're making you feel uncomfortable. And if they don't stop, like this is, separating yourself, making yourself feel safe. And the girls were able to share and encourage each other. So I just wanted to share that, and thank Charlotte for hosting the living room conversation earlier this year. Thank you.
Thank you for your powerful reflection. We do have a birthday today. Phil Eskew, August 19th. Phil is a retired physician and also, I believe, a retired brigadier general in the Air Force. So thank you for your service, Phil. And thank you for your service to Rotary. We have no anniversaries to the club this day, but we do have time for happy dollars. So I know a lot of you are happy, so let's share the happiness with the club. happy dollars. Steve.
My daughter is here and I don't get to see her too often, so there's some happy dollars. I'm happy about all that.
Thanks, Steve.
I have 20 happy dollars to share because I am so excited that Amina Mohammadi, who is our the oldest daughter of Jawahir and Abdul Rahim, the family of Afghan guests that we sponsor here at Bloomington Rotary Club, she passed her written driving test and now has a learner's permit and is looking for people that would like to help her with practice driving for the next 6 months. Hey, and I already did the first try in the parking lot. So yeah, it wasn't that scary.
Thank you, Dave.
Anybody online?
I've got 7 happy dollars here, one for each week that I've been the interim director of the Buzzkirk Chumley Theater. And I'm really happy to introduce to you today the new director, Steve Verstock. Stand up.
Welcome, Steve.
He'll be starting on Monday.
And Sandy?
I have 5 happy dollars, but they're kind of in a reverse happy dollar because I'm inciting Rotarians in this room for their help. Jawahir, who is one of the fabulous Afghanistan refugees, as Dave mentioned, that we have sponsored, has been working at my sister's closet doing alterations, and we have decided that we are going to help her promote her business. So we're going to make business cards for her, and I'm asking for Rotarians to submit ideas on what her business name could be on her business cards, and that's what my happy dollars are for.
Thanks, Sandy.
Hey, a special shout out to Connie Shakalis, who hit it out of the park on Golden Pond over at Brown County Theater. And she's going to have a nice concert in the next few weeks. Tell her that you'll be there and all about it. She is one fantastic singer, actress, everything else that she does.
I want to have what Tim had for lunch.
Well, I'm very happy for this club because I've been out of the club activities for a few weeks. And it's been amazing that the cards that I have received in honor of my mother.
Thanks, Judy.
There's 10 happy dollars. It's my 56th wedding anniversary this week.
Well, thank you for sharing your happiness today. Again, for our guests. Oh, we have one more coming up. Good.
Yep. This room is not conducive.
Yeah. Sorry, Lauren, I didn't see you.
No worries. I haven't been here a lot, but August is a big month for me. My anniversary, Morgan and I are anniversary, August 8th, my birthday, August 9th, and then my professional anniversary is every August on August 25th. So here's 20 happy dollars, all feeling very blessed. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Lauren. Rosie.
I want to give 5 happy dollars. Actually, I'd love to give much more because I'm so thankful, Artie and I, to be back here at the Bloomington Rotary. It's just been wonderful since we're back. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. For the benefit of our guests, the proceeds that come from Happy Dollars support Teachers Warehouse, which is something that's been a major service endeavor of our Rotary Club. Just to give you an example, we had the Blitz, which means the 2 weeks towards the start of school for teachers to come in. We had 500 teachers come in during those 2 weeks and hauled out $103,000 in school supplies. Again, thanks for this Rotary Club for sponsoring that. I'd like to invite Lauren Snyder to come up to introduce our esteemed guest and speaker.
Thank you, Ron. Good to see everybody. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I personally don't know Allison until today. However, a good friend of mine that I went to high school with, her name is Lauren, ironically, but she reached out and said, hey, I think you should consider having Allison speak at your Rotary Club in Bloomington. I was a longtime Rotarian in Franklin. Lauren's dad is a longtime Rotarian in Franklin. So all these connections, I'm playing golf with him on Sunday. So like it's all these small world connections. So it's my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Allison Barber. She is the president and chief operating officer of the Indiana Fever. With a career that spans from a schoolhouse to the White House and now to the field house, Dr. Allison Barber has a successful record of building brands and maximizing impact. From grade school teacher in Maryville, Indiana, to communication strategist in the White House and United States Department of Defense, and as the first chancellor and chief fundraiser for Western Governors University, Indiana, Allison has dedicated herself to creating pathways to help individuals reach their potential. Now, as the president and COO of the Indiana Fever, she has set her sights on building and inspiring Fever fans in all 92 counties of Indiana. Barber understands the power of playing sports, a college athlete who lettered in tennis and softball. She values the positive impact sports have on both children and adults. There's a litany of different accolades and honors she's received here, but I want to allocate that time to hearing from Allison herself. So let's all please welcome Dr. Allison Barber.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. What a great club. I have the good fortune, really good fortune of traveling around this great state of ours. And I do love Indiana, don't you? There's just something special about our state. And I go to a lot of meetings, and this is the happiest Rotarian group I've been to. Lots of happy bucks. And as a former first grade school teacher in the region, what a great investment you're making in the lives of students by providing school supplies for the teachers. You know, I started my first job right out of college. Couldn't believe I got hired on. There were 800 applicants in Maryville, Indiana for school teachers for just a handful of jobs. And I was lucky enough to get one of them. And I couldn't believe it. And I called my friends the day I signed my contract, and we all drove up. My friends lived in Chicago to celebrate. And I just remember thinking that was amazing. I had a contract, and then I realized my contract was for $16,000 a year. And I thought, well, we better celebrate with iced tea or something cheap. It will not be a big expensive celebration, but my master's is from IU. So I went to IU up north, but happy to be back on campus and with each and every one of you. Thank you for supporting teachers. There's just no better way to invest your dollars than to say you believe in teachers. So thank you for that. How many of you in here have been teachers? But several. Yes, let's congratulations and thank you for investing in the future. I left this morning. My parents and my husband and I share a home, and my mother-in-law just lived around the corner. I love intergenerational living. There's something special if you get the chance to do it, I think. And I dropped by and to check in on my mother-in-law. She just moved into the house 2 weeks ago. And I said, I'm going to Bloomington. And she goes, well, go get them, honey. Go change the world today. And I thought, well, that's a big ask. And then I sat here in this room with each of you, and I thought, well, I can't change the world, but we can change the world. And I'm so inspired by the work that the Rotarians do, but by you specifically, by investing in this community and in teachers. And it's just an honor to be with you today. So thank you for this opportunity. You know, I am a school teacher. I'm going to start with a pop quiz. So here we go. When I say an athlete's name, you tell me what sport they played. We're going to start super easy. Billie Jean King. Oh, smart girl. Serena. Lily King. Ooh, hometown. Yay. Very nice. Simone. Gymnastics. We need to learn. We need to be able to go by one name. You know, I think that would be really, you make it if you do that. How about Tamika Catchings? Basketball. Grace Berger. Oh, let's hear it for Grace Berger. How many of you been, I know Deb is a season ticket holder. Thank you for being here today and wearing the brand. You look awesome. Thank you for that. Any of you been up to a Fever game yet this season? All right, thank you. We have 6 home games left. We have a special Rotarian offer for you on your table. We'd love for you to come up with a group of friends, cheer on our team. Grace Berger in particular, hailing from IU as an alum. We're really proud to have her on our team. If you can't come, we have a separate opportunity for you, because I do love students and kids. So on this QR code, you say, oh, I can't make it up for one of your home games. But if you scan this code, you can make a donation and you can help us send kids from Indianapolis to a free fever game. And so that's your opportunity. If you can't join us, send someone. So we'd welcome that support as well. How about last quiz question, Bernice Sandler. Bernice Sandler. Trick question. Bernice Sandler is the mother of Title IX. So she was a professor at University of Maryland and kept competing, kept applying for a promotion at the university and kept getting turned down. And she went to her boss and she said, I'm a professor here, an associate professor, and I should be able to apply and I'm qualified for this job. Why don't I get it? And he said to her, oh, Bernice, you know you're too outspoken for a woman. And Bernice got mad. Someone said to her, oh, what inspires you to push for Title IX? She said, nothing inspired me. I just got mad. And Bernice started the long, long pursuit of pushing for equality for women in the areas of career and education. And as you might know, as the story goes, last year was the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So really not that long in our country's history have women had equal opportunity, first and foremost, to education. That's really important, isn't it? That women have the opportunity to go to any school that's federally funded, gets any kind of grant, that they have that opportunity equal to men. Well, when our own Indiana Senator Birch Bayh was encouraged by the US Congressman Patsy Mink in Hawaii to push forward on this legislation of Title IX, he believed in it. He was married to a strong woman. He believed in the power of equality, and he put his pen to paper and inked the language of Title IX, allowing for women to have equal access to education. And the next few words say, and other activities. It's only 37 words long. 37 words that change the trajectory of most women and girls today who want to pursue education. But by saying and other activities, that's what opened the door for scholarships for athletes. Now, when Lauren introduced me, he said I was a college athlete, and I was. I walked onto my tennis team at a small university in Chattanooga and walked onto the softball team and lettered in both. And it was not a glamorous career for me in sports. I call myself an accidental athlete. Being a good Hoosier, I grew up playing basketball on my driveway, like any of you, also shoot a hoop occasionally. But when I went to college and when I played sports, there were no scholarship dollars. It was for credit and gym class, and away we went. But now, because that legislation said other activities, it included scholarships for sports. And what I can tell you is women's sport is on the rise. Any of you watched the college women's basketball tournament last year? 9.9 million people viewed that game. More people watched the women's game than the men's game. And for me, it's not about one or the other. It's about both. It's about both. Because what do we know about education and sports? We know that students who play sports, according to research, have better grades. Students who play more than one sport have better grades. Students that learn how to play sports, women in particular, 90% of women in executive jobs in America, guess what they did? They played sports. 90%. Why is that? Well, you learn teamwork. You learn discipline. I'll tell you what I love about basketball, which will never show up on a marketing brochure because it will just show what a geek I am about research. Basketball is the #1 sport that develops psychological well-being. #1 sport to develop psychological well-being. I don't know about you, but when I read the headlines and watch the news today, the one thing I see missing in society today is psychological well-being. Now, wrestling is the #1 sport to create personal discipline. Makes sense, doesn't it? But when you think about basketball and playing with the team and going up against obstacles and winning together and losing together, psychological well-being. When I got a call on a Friday, I was at a higher WGU Indiana. Any students or alums in here from WGU Indiana? Great online university for our state. When I was at work on a Friday, I received a phone call from somebody at Pacer Sports and Entertainment. And when my phone rang and I saw who it was, I thought, uh-oh, it's about 11 o'clock in the morning. They must need to fill a table at the Economic Club luncheon today, and they're short people. So that's why I'm getting this call today, is because they need me to come sit at their table for lunch. And I answered the phone, and Rick Fuson said, how about coming to talk to me about being the president of the Fever? I was a chancellor of a university. I laughed out loud. I'm like, Rick, you've got to be kidding me. He's like, nope. We need somebody to help us rebrand our game, our team, our franchise. Help us market it. And I hung up and I called my husband. I said, you are not going to believe the call I just got. And he told me, and he said, what do you think? I said, oh, I'm doing it. I love the game of basketball. I mean, I didn't tell Rick that because that would have compromised all negotiation ability. Oh, you know. But I thought, what if I could come alongside these amazing athletes like Grace Berger and Aaliyah Boston? And what if we could create an environment that helped motivate and inspire children and develop some psychological well-being? Well, wouldn't that be a great mission? So my first week on the job, I started getting to know people, and I wrote a 3-point strategy, which, because I've come out of business and nonprofit world, I need, you're the same way. You need a little strategy to focus. So I put together a 3-point strategy: commit, compete, and contribute. Commit, compete, and contribute. We will build a championship culture. We might not win a championship game. We will build a championship culture if we have a commitment to be the best people we can be. If we compete for all of the things that you need to compete for in sports. And then if we can contribute back into our community. And I met with my marketing team, and they were talking to me about all the events we had coming up. And I was looking at our giveaways, and we were handing out hand sanitizer. And I said to them, let's not hand out hand sanitizer. Our job is to help kids get their hands what? Dirty. Guess who never gets their hands dirty? People who are only playing video games, unless they're eating Cheetos at the same time, which we are not responsible for that. I said, our job is to get kids outside, shooting hoops, playing basketball, developing psychological well-being. You got to get your hands dirty as a kid to develop psychological well-being. And my marketer said, well, okay, but after they play basketball, they need to clean their hands. And I said, that is not our problem. That's why they have parents. How do we get into the community? And so our first C for commitment was, how can we be the best people individually that we can be? How do we show up every day at our job at the only women's professional team in the state of Indiana? You know, there are only 12 WNBA teams in the country. So you think about all of these college athletes who are at the top of their game, and they have to compete for for 144 slots. It's very competitive. So how do we, as the front office, the president and the marketing people and digital and social media and community engagement people, how do we show up every day with a commitment to say, we're going to be the best people we can be? I found it quite interesting that in sports, people had double standards. They expected the athletes to practice all the time, to always make the free throw, to always win the game, but they didn't put that same requirement on themselves as a front office person. Well, shouldn't I be practicing my art every day? Don't you in your business stay focused on what helps win your client, your product, your mission? Aren't you committed to that every day? Sure you are. And we had to be too. We had a little bit of a mindset change. We had won a championship. All of our great players had retired. We were a rebuild. We had only won 13 games. It was tough. And one of our former employees said, well, you know, Allison, you know what your problem is? That's a great way to start a sentence, isn't it? She said, the programs we did last year, we had 30 and 40 people come to our events. We had 30 and 40 people show up. She said, and That's not good enough for you. You want more people to show up this year. So what we did last year wasn't good enough for you. And that was mind-boggling to me. It was telling though, that there was a status quo mentality. Can you imagine running a business and say, oh, we had 40 customers last year. Let's not try for any more this year. Could you imagine saying to your sports team, you won 13 games last year. Don't even try to win more this year. It was such a double standard. Saying, how do we elevate our business in the women's game equal to what we hope our team does on the court? And in sports, it's interesting because everybody talks about your win and loss record. People said, oh, you'll have more fans if you win more games. And I said, I disagree. I grew up a Cubs fan. Winning had nothing to do with my fandom. I said, all the research teaches me if we give people something to believe in, something to hope for, they'll be a fan. And we have amazing fans that have stuck with us through thick and thin. So the commitment says, how do you show up every day in your business? I hear you're a clown, right? Yeah, that's awesome. How do you show up every day, no matter what your job is, with your commitment? You know, there are a lot of sayings in sports. Maybe you know a few. The ball don't, what? Lie. Teamwork makes the dream work. Be where your shoes are. I mean, I got into sports. I'm like, I have no idea what all these people are talking about, but they've got a saying for everything. And grammar is not necessarily a requirement in sports. My first year on the job, we had shirts that said, gold don't lie. And they said, what size do you wear? I said, I don't wear that shirt. I taught grade school. I am not, unless you put an apostrophe, gold doesn't lie, or gold comma, don't lie. I'm not wearing that shirt. Grammar is not a requirement for sport fandom, apparently. But when I grew up playing basketball on my driveway, my dad would come out to me outside and shoot with me. And he would always say the same thing, take it to the hoop, kid. Take it to the hoop. He wanted me to take it to the hoop because what would happen if I were closer to the hoop, I would have a higher percentage of what? Getting it in. About an 82% higher chance of scoring a basket if you're close within a layup distance to the basket. My dad was teaching me, get closer to the basket and you'll make it. What he didn't know he was teaching me was a strategy for my business and my life. The closer you are to the basket, the more likely you are to make it. And what does that give you? Courage. It gives you courage to do what? To move back a little bit and back a little bit more. You think about the first time you went on a sales call and how nervous you might have been. And today, if somebody said to you, oh, can you just run over and talk to this client? You wouldn't think twice about getting in your car and talking to a client. Why? You had courage at a young time in your career that has built confidence. That's what we do in sports too. That's what we do in our front office. How do we commit to being the best people we can be so we can compete with courage? And what are we competing for in sports? People think we're competing for wins. Well, sure, we're a sports team. But what we're really competing for is fandom and partners and impact and loyalty. Don't you want to support the only women's team in the state of Indiana? I mean, what does that say for Indiana? It's pretty awesome. And we're in our 24th year. We've been at it a while here. When I got this job, I had a GM, a head coach. It wasn't working. So my VP said, let's get a new head coach. So I'm okay. They know basketball. I know business. We'll get a new head coach. We bring in that new head coach. My first year, we won 13 games. My second year with the new head coach that everybody said was terrific. And she was. She's in the Naismith Hall of Fame, head coach, amazing. And we won 6 games. And I traveled the off season and went around the state and said to people, okay, we won 6 games, but guess what? There's nowhere to go but, oh, you're optimist too. I like it. We should be in the optimist club too. I'm a devout optimist. When somebody says to me, you won 6 games, but you put new players in and a new strategy, it's like, we're going to win more games. I'm sure of it. We won 6 games. Next year will be better. Guess how many games we won the next year? 5. Never crossed my mind we could have gotten worse. Never crossed my mind. That's the shadow side of being an optimist. Sometimes you don't think about the reality of what else might happen. So we changed coaches again. I'm in my 4th year. This is our 4th coach and our 3rd general manager. Yikes, that's a lot of transition. But what's different about basketball and sports compared to business is that you have to make our season is 40 games long, 40 games. So you don't have 12 months to try and tweak it and grow it and develop culture. So what you learn in sports is you have to find the right person at the right time. And we have in Coach Christy Sides. I hope you'll come cheer her on. She's a terrific head coach. And with Coach Sides came the first draft pick, which is Aaliyah Boston from South Carolina, and Grace Berger from IU. And we're putting together a new team with a new strategy that says we're going to commit to being the best people we can be, so we can compete for fans and partners and wins, of course. We're in sports. If you were in sales, we'd never say, well, don't worry about selling your product. That is your product. This is my product. We are going to compete for wins. Are we there yet? No. Will we get there? Yes. Because the other C, the 3rd C, which is so critical to our success, is contribution. How do we build a franchise where we're committed to being the best people we can be, so we can compete for the things that are so important, so we can contribute and give back to our community? Yesterday, I was at the Wheeler Mission for Children and Women in Indianapolis, and we were serving lunch, the Fever, serving lunch to the residents of Wheeler Mission. Last week, we did a shoe drive for kids. 2 weeks ago, we did a backpack stuffing party for elementary students going to school without backpacks. My one player, Lexi Hall, has her bachelor's and master's in engineering. We're doing STEM initiatives with Lexi and girls in the community. This is how we contribute back to our community. And that, to me, is the value and the beauty of the things that we put our hands to. Erica Wheeler on my team grew up in a gang-riddled community in Florida, and her mom didn't want her to go down that path, so she put her in basketball. She's the only player to go into the WNBA undrafted to win the MVP of an all-star game. But it was because her mom saw a different path for her through sports. This is what we do. Do we put a ball through a hoop all the day, every day? Do we take it to the hoop in our mindset of having courage and commitment and drive to win? Sure. How many of you, when you're by your trash can at your desk and you crinkle up your Post-it note, you turn and you toss it into your trash can? How many tossers are in this room? I know there are tossers in this room. And when it goes in the trash can, what do you say, Steve? Yes. Why? Because it feels good to score a basket. It feels good to accomplish your goal. And at the Fever, that's our goal. Committing to be who we can be as we represent each of you, all Hoosiers, in promoting girls and women in sports and doing our part to contribute back into the community. So I thank you for having me today. Thank you for being Fever fans. And with that, I'll take some questions.
I'll get there, Martha.
This isn't so much a question as a comment. I read that in the Women's Soccer Cup, 154 of the players playing for foreign teams had gone to college in the US. And the ultimate reason was Title IX, because other places may have academies, they may have paths for women, but they don't have the ability to get an education and take classes. Now, that's not your arena, but I
power
just
of
thought that
Title
was
IX.
really interesting, and it does go back to Title IX.
It does. Thank you for sharing that. And you know, WNBA players all have to have 4 years of college or be 21 when they go into the draft. So unlike the NBA, where the men play 1 year in college and then go into the draft, the women have to have 4 years of college. They created it that way because they knew that the career of a female athlete in basketball would be about 4 years, which is accurate. And the money wouldn't sustain them for a career. So Aaliyah Boston, the #1 pick in the country, came out and she made, I think, $75,000 for her rookie contract. $75,000. So that's set by the league. And I'm not complaining about it. It just means that we have to be thoughtful about how we prepare female athletes to go on to do other things, because this won't be sustainable for their whole career. So Title IX is, the college degree is so critical. Yeah.
So this is a kind of a question about your and your GM's jobs. In a comparison with the NBA, I'd like to think that women are a little bit more about building relationships. So in how, but you watch the NBA and they say they're that, and then they cut people right and left and they trade and it's all, seems like it's all about money a lot of the time. And in your world, since there's only 12 other or 11 other teams, how do you see the longer term commitment to players? I'm thinking, of course, Grace wanting to keep her in Indiana. How do you see that long term commitment, and how do you are planning on managing that with the players?
We come to the game with an abundance mentality. Stephen Covey used to write about a scarcity mentality versus an abundance mentality. I did this in business. You probably do it in business too. It's why you're part of a Rotary. How do we work together for the common good? How do we come together? Oh, you won that piece of business. Well, next time I'll probably win the other piece of business. We look at it as that the pie is pretty big in women's sports. And so you do find that there's a camaraderie and support amongst all the teams, so that we do trades and we move people. We made a deal this year because of culture in the locker room. We had to move a player, and that's real, but it's not vicious. And I think that's part of this collaboration of, we all have this abundance mentality that we want women to succeed and our teams to succeed. But first we want the women to succeed. And we want to keep Grace in Indiana too.
Any questions online? All right, Kayla?
Hey, how did you change the culture when you entered your leadership position, and what was one of the most important values for you to bring to them?
There were two things. One went pretty well and one did not. The first thing I did was I put the 3 C's: commit, compete, and contribute on the wall in the locker room, because I come from a business background. You know, every company has their vision statement and their values and whatever their theme is. You know, Nike is just what? Do it. Like, you know what they stand for. And I thought championship culture, 3 C's made great sense to me. And it didn't resonate at all with my players. So I have a folder in my desk. I call it my humility folder. And when I do things that make mistakes, I jot it out and throw it in my humility folder. So that's in my humility folder. What makes sense from a front office mindset of commit, compete, and contribute didn't mean a thing to my players. They wanted to see their pictures on the wall and their jumps and their block shots and photos. So we changed the entire locker room to connect with them. So that was a miss on my part. It was so clear to me too, but it just didn't, it made such, it was kind of nice. It all went together. So that didn't work at all. What I did do that I think helped is I showed up every day. So the women's game is from May to September, unless you make the playoffs. And previously, and a lot of times in women's sports, the whole team goes overseas to play, the leadership team kind of goes away, and I kept showing up. And so I would show up and I'd be at Pacer games and city events and travel the state. And what that did is it showed my franchise that we're a 12-month franchise. And if we're going to try to change the world, as my mother-in-law told me to do this morning, then we have to show up every day in the world. And so I think that has resonated, that my front office and the team sees that you can't build a brand and you can't inspire people to support a franchise that goes away half the year. And so that, I think we're making progress there.
Hi. The second Wednesday in July is Kids Day for the Fever home game. And there were kids all over the place. And many of them were from Bloomington. The Boys and Girls Club sent a whole lot of kids that day. And I just wondered, how do you set that up? Who pays for that? Is it free? It was an amazing day for all those kids.
Thank you. One game, Deb's talking about one game of season at noon, we have a Kids Day. We had over 6,000 screaming children in the building. And so we do that in partnerships with Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCA, Boy Scout, Girl Scouts. And so when they're running their camps, those camps put in a fee and we give them a discounted rate to bring their kids to the game. And then also through this QR code is what we call our fever, it's our fever fund. And so then kids want to come, and if they don't have money to come, then we use the money that you donate to pay for their tickets to come. So it's really important to us. We're going to develop psychological well-being. Like nobody really wants to hear about that in sports. I get it, but I believe in it 100%. We have to let kids see that there's a game for them. And the thing about basketball is you can play it in the driveway by yourself, and you can get better at it the harder, more you practice, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to play. Like this is the game. This is the game to help kids have something better to do and inspire them. So that's why we get 6,000 kids out to our game. Some of my season ticket holders don't like it, and others come in wear earplugs. They're so smart. They're like, we know what this is about.
Joy, do we have anyone online? For a question.
I don't see any hands. Tracy.
Anyone else in the room?
How many will we see at a Fever game this season? Coming up. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this Friday we've got a great game. Please come out with your group. We'd love to have you. And Michael, I brought you a hat, IU Fever hat for having us. And Lauren, I brought you a hat for inviting me. So thank you so much for having me today. Go Fever. Thanks so much.
You are an inspirational leader, and you obviously inspired us today, so thank you. In honor of your presentation to us today, we're giving money to the Stone Belt organization, and I'm sure they're going to appreciate it, and we appreciate you being here a lot, Allison. Thank you. Have some acknowledgements today because our meeting wouldn't go on without your help. Our greeter, Steve Engel. Thank you, Steve. Introductions by Greer Carson. Our Zoom host, as always, Joy Harder. The reflection that we had today from Theresa Clare, our reporter, Sarah Laughlin, and our camera and mic operator gets special trying to get through this table and everything. You did a very, you should have been in ballet. You did a nice job. So Tracy Jadanovic, thank you. And obviously Tyler Martin Nichols for producing this program today. Our next meeting will be back here and on Zoom. And our speaker will be Shauna Gergis, Program Director of Community Relations and Outreach for IU Health. That'll be a very interesting meeting. So at this point, Tyler, if you'll please bring up the graphic of the four-way test, we'll stand and say together our four-way test of the things we say. Okay? First, is it the truth? Second, is it goodwill to all good friends? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial for all? Fifth, will it be fun?